Okay, there we go. So if for some reason you see my screen going blank, stay, keep going. So,
Okay.
okay.
All right.
All right.
Then yeah,
Well, yeah. Well, welcome everybody, and for all those who are going to be joining us on the recording, this is some really valuable teachings that we're getting on the practice theory and spiritual practice of Tipi raising. Uh, just want to call in 100% passionate spirits, angels, ancestors, and guides. Welcome to the Order Sacred Directions, Grandmother of the Breath of Sky. And thank you for this beautiful day. Gratitude for all the things that we have. Gratitude for all the things that will be coming our way, all the abundance that we receive financially, spiritually, physically. And a special gratitude for Dan that he is able to take this time to show us and teach us. Gratitude for all the blessings that he's going to be receiving as he continues to teach us. All things come back fourfold, and really beautiful things coming your way down. Cool. And you're on, Dan. Do your thing.
okay. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for facilitating this too, taking your time as well. As first, I'd like to say is I'm not classically trained or kind of any way in that as far as TP teaching. So what I'm going to be relaying here today is what I've kind of figured out on my own through Google searches and YouTube. Some trial and error over the last couple of years and just kind of figuring it out. So some of the terminology I may get wrong as far as it's not completely traditional way or not. I know there are other ways of doing it, but this is the way that I've come up with that works for circles and also for the style of lodge that Hua wants at Longview, the type of lodges that he wants. So with that too, like when I taught myself, I came home trying to wrap my head around it. We'll see how it shows up here. So I got some skewers and some plywood and made a model of the two type of teepees that we do. We made it too, so you can see from up above. So if you can kind of see there too, what I'm trying to maintain with these is some type of sacred geometry. It's a clockwise spiral leading all the way up. And also with the circles ones, the crown is very important as far as for Hua. It's I call it the beauty way, and that's what Hua kind of calls it too, as far as for how your crown is symmetrical all the way around, and it gives you a nice crest to it. I don't know if we can come up on here as much on these, but you can see you got a nice symmetrical even crown, and from a side view, they have a nice slant to them. It looks like a headdress crown, really does. So that's kind of more what I call the beauty way, because in order to achieve this look too, we're not putting the poles into all the crotches. We're wrapping them around. So that's one thing that I know is different from traditional ways as far as because for stability, other ways you would want it in all the crotches to help hold you down. So it's a little different, but it creates for this very beautiful. And when you see them in person, they're just it's awesome the way they come up there. So, and as far as other terminologies with TPs, ones that hold true as far as with your tripod, your important poles you have is you got a north pole, a south pole, and a door pole. Now, when you're talking north and south, like, oh no, let's see here. In here a little more, kind of. So, kind of. I got it for right now, babe. Uh, so north and south poles. This is a door. So let me tell you too. So two different lodges that we got. We got a closed lodge or a winter lodge. So this is where it's dressed all the way around with the door. And then we also have an open lodge or a summer lodge. So you can see it spread really far out and you open it way up. Those are our two styles. So showing you here, as you go back to, so north and south. So here is your door. Traditionally, what you're just going to think of your door is this is east, because traditionally the doors would always face the rising sun that I'm aware of. So this is east. So you got east, west, south, north. So when you're saying north and south pole, it doesn't mean it's directly north and south of like the door. It just means within the region. So your south pole's going to be on this half, your north pole's going to be on this half as far as for your. And I like to bring them up. What I've noticed with how we're maintaining that spiral coming up is I like to bring them up in the south when we're raising the tripod. That, oh, so for the tripod, this is one that we just started using this other type of latching last year. It worked out very well. And it was a thank you to Paul too. Paul found this particular latching. It is very simple, but it brings a lot more security and stability to the lodges. So I don't know if we can kind of see that there. This is the type of lashing that we're going to be doing on the tripod. So with your tripod, and these are your three most important poles that you got for the lodge. This is going to set up your basis of how the lodge is going to look, how it's going to feel. So, and the three here is you got north and south. So you got north and south and a door pole. Okay. When you're setting up your lodge, the difference between the length of your door pole to the length of your north and south pole is going to dictate this kind of side lean. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it here. So how you're coming back this way. And on a closed lodge, the reason why you're wanting to do that, so your door pole is longer than your north and south pole. So you're not just a cone, it's shifting you backward a little. And by doing that, what you're really doing is here in the center at the top, this is where your smoke hole is. So if you had a fire inside, you want this smoke hole to be a little bit further back to where the center of the teepee has a straight shot up through, and the fire is normally a little bit in front of that. So it vents a lot better that way. And it also, like I said, it gives you that little bit of lean to the front. So it's a little flatter in the back, leaning in the front. So it gives you that extra look. And this whole setup, to get this all right, just comes down to your tripod. So if your tripod is off, then once you put it together, it's going to look off too. So I'm not sure if I can. Well, let's see here. I'm going to try to get us in a position here. So with, oh, okay, we can kind of do it this way. There we go. Hopefully you guys can see that one. So here is a tripod, and these were just set up a real quick tie, and it's all even. So your symmetrical cone, basically. And by each little bit that you move and make your door pull longer, the more to where it's going to give you that pitch. And to put that smoke hole where you want it to be. And the key thing is by leaving your north and south the exact same distance, and you're only adjusting the length of your door pole, then once you're set up, it's always going to even out this other way, your side to side. It should always bring it to where that's still lining up in the center of where you want your TV to be down the line. So I guess with that, because I don't have a planned agenda, I don't know if anyone has any questions as far as it goes so far with that, or something that I didn't fill in enough before I move on a little.
I think that was really clear, Dan. I think one of the things that I'm taking away that's even more clear in my brain is that the door pole ends up being slightly longer when you're binding it with the north and the south, which is what creates that leaning effect, which sort of pushes it. I guess it would be west, right? And that has its function. So I thought that was super important. I'm glad that binding is going to work so well. So we'll continue to use that same binding. And I think the other thing that was really clear with your models is the difference between the summer and the winter, one being more open. And so you've got a greater diameter, which then, of course, with a greater diameter, you're not going to be able to enclose the whole thing because it's going to stay open for the summer. Whereas with a smaller diameter, it allows you to be able to close that top part of or the doors rather on the TP. That's correct.
Yeah. Mhm.
Cool. That's
Yeah.
really well explained. I don't have any other questions. I don't have any questions
Okay.
or comments.
All right. And go
I'm
ahead.
just I was wanting to ask about the rope again, like how it weaves. Okay, do you weave it on the poles, or is that something you're about to get to, or
Yeah, I wasn't so I'm not sure what to expect here today. I wasn't going to go into fully how we do this particular lashing. But it is a very, very simple one to where I'll try to describe it a
yeah,
little bit.
that I'm familiar with. I'm
Oh,
worried. My question is about like once we start putting the poles up.
oh, okay. Yeah, because what we'll do is once we lay this out on the ground, the tripod, at the same time we'll be tying our larger rope to this. For this is just a lashing by
Sure.
itself of a smaller size rope, cotton rope that we use, so we can get it tight and together there. And then on the outside of this, we tie our main long rope, like about our 50-foot rope, gets tied to the tripod. So once you're ready to go up, actually, your tripod, when you're going up, it's going to be on the ground, something like this.
Right.
And your rope's coming from here. And then I always like to have at least two people so that you got one person here and one person here holding their feet on it. So it doesn't stay there. And when you're on the rope, you start pulling, and it helps too, right at first, to have someone walking up so you get it over the center so you pull on the rope better. So your rope's here, then you're going to pull up, find your balance of it with the rope, and then that's where you pull your other pull out once you're up, and then you got yourself somewhat of a solid tripod.
Great.
So that's with okay, so we got the tripod down as far as that going up. Now, as far as layout, there are probably many ways as far as figuring out where all your poles go. When I started looking at it, I know there was some other ones that some people do it by, of course, it's original looking at the canvas and then like pacing it out once you get your tripod up and then finding like that triangle. For me, because I didn't know all the sizes of the teepees and that would change with each one and what we really had, I looked at it more of kind of an engineering or a geometry problem. So I wanted to lay out on the ground. I pre-mark all the poles where they're going before I even start erecting the teepee. And so I do that mostly with geometry, and then I've done the measurements, and I made myself up a story rope here. So it's for all the different ones, and I use it just with a stake and then the end of a shovel, and just use it like a compass on the ground. And this is how I mark out each section and figure out where all the poles go. So, yeah, okay. So when I do that, you can kind of see, like here, what I did, because the poles, the way we're set up is the closed lodge is from the inside looking at it, 13 poles. And now that includes the lift pole. So, because your lift pole, I don't have an example of one here, but so like on the closed lodge, when you're done, the back is open, the front is open. The front is the door, the back is where your lift pole goes. Because we tie the canvas to the lift pole. So you always want that pole to be your strongest pole you got because it's going to hold some weight of that canvas going up. You tie off the canvas to the lift pole. And so I pretend like, there's a canvas there, so it's on the ground, and then takes a few people when you lift it up and put it in, and we'll have the canvas just wrapped around this pole. then it's already secured up at the top, and you just unfurl your canvas around. So in going with the number of holes for our lodges and circles, your closed lodge, winter lodge, is 13 poles, including the lift pole. Because from inside, once the lift pole is in, that's what you see from the inside. So I considered that 13 poles. So what I actually did then, with that being a pole, and if the door was a pole, I figured I based everything off of 14 sections, as far as the geometry for doing my story ropes and all that. Sectioned everything off into 14 sections of the circle. And then now on your summer lodge, your open lodge, this has 11 poles, including the lift. So it's 2 less poles. And then with that, there are additional poles that go with each of them, and it's the flat poles. So the smoke flaps for the canvas, once they're there, is that just slip in, but they're not part of the structure itself. They're just for opening and closing the smoke flap. So in general, in total, for your closed, you have 15 poles in total, including the smoke flaps. And for your open summer lodge, you have 13. So, and then, yeah, so we went over from there to there. And once it starts going up, I just start working around. And there is a sequence to it to get this spiral. So I don't have it that well to show it here. I didn't know how detailed we were going to. But laying out on the ground. So let's see here if I can kind of show you here. So going up, your door pole in the south, because I like to bring them up in the south. Your door pole in the south is always one of your tripod. And then from there, on the same south side, I go all the way to the last pole, because we're not doing the lift. You know, the lift pole and that pole, when you're going up, that's always stays open. So south door, south last pole are the 2 parts of the tripod. And then on the other side, I come in to the 3rd pole in the north from the back. And that's the basis of the tripod. And as you bring your tripod up, your poles, they'll fall in line if you bring it up in the south. Because if you keep your door pole on the top as your tripod is over, and then once you pull it up, and then pull the outer pole from here, because you'll have your double of your north and south. This pole, once this comes up this far, gets pulled to here and then set down. And once you do that, it'll naturally, the way we tie them, it'll start to spiral the top as well. It'll keep that clockwise spiral. You can kind of see there, like a top view of what we're really trying to get. So it's a nice symmetrical big crown. So, and from there, what I like to do is, of course, next, because you want a very sturdy base after your tripod is up, is you put in your other door pole. Put in your other door pole, and then you're going to give it a couple lashings around to solidify that in. Now, once you've got your first 4 poles, so you got your tripod and your other door pole, so you got a sturdy structure right now. You don't have to worry about it going to wobble or fall or tip on. That's when you can step back and eyeball it. And as far as eyeballing, is you're going basically from door to lift. You want to visualize through there. And with circles, especially with Drum, Grandmother Lodge, and Moon Lodge, and this year it sounds like Fire Lodge as well is going to be moved in line. So it's in same positions of the 4 directions around the center pit. So you always want to make sure you're lining straight to that center pit from where these are. And then you can tell that by looking at your top crotch too. When all these others aren't here, it'll be a lot more easier to see. You can see where this center crotch is. And if it's right in line of where you want it to be. And then once that's set on a closed lodge, then I'm going to come back and I'm going to start from the outside here, and I'm going to close these two. And then I'm going to switch over to this side. So, because here's where your tripod pole is, your door pole, I feel in between those two first. Okay, my north side. So it gets that super stable. Then on your south side, all you're going to have is the door and another tripod. So same thing, I just work my way around. Fill these in one at a time. And once you're there, then you're gonna have to come back because you still have these two last poles on this side. And then I still work as far as going this way. And then I put this one and then here last. So you're still, I guess the best way to say it, when you start in the south side is you're going this way, but still all your poles, when they go up, your poles need to come clockwise up. And like I said, they don't rest in between here. They always go all the way to the outside. You're gonna, when the pole comes up, you go all the way to the outside. So it's good to line it up there and then bring it straight down. So from this side, you're gonna fill in these two heading this way. And then you're basically just gonna work your way all the way around to fill in. Of course, leaving your lift pole open. And that is for a closed lodge. Now the open lodge, which I'll admit I haven't gotten them completely right yet. I'm hoping this year is the year as far as getting them opened up just right without having the crown to where it can be too top heavy. And also, it's very interesting how big you can open up these lodges because you're taking two poles out and you're opening it up even more because your canvas doesn't have to hug all the way around. Your canvas only has to cover your poles. So you can open these lodges up a lot more than just the winter lodge. So with this one too, then, so we're going to be looking at an open lodge, same thing, door pole, part of the tripod, my south door is where it's going to be. And this, well, let me go this way first. So that's there. And then same thing again up at the top, all the way to my very last spot. So on both of them, in the south, this is the direction I like to bring them up. And so in the south, it's always the door and your last pole before the lift pole. It's part of the tripod. And then same thing here, skip two, put one there. That's your tripod again. So you always skip the two on your north side tripod. Your two furthest poles in the south side tripod. And then same thing here. Once that's up in that same direction, you're going to put in your other door pole and then just fill it. And it's same order, but less poles. Okay.
Can I jump in, Dan?
Yeah, any questions from that point? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that was that's I'm experiencing how I have experience with this, so it's actually really easier for me to visualize. So I imagine that someone who's never done this might have a challenge kind of conceptualizing this whole thing because there's a lot of holes going on. But I think in terms of the model, it's great. I'm wondering if maybe for future teachings we can color the tripod poles so we can see the distinction between those three and the rest of them.
Mhm.
That's an
Yeah,
idea for future.
I do have as far as the four poles, you can't see it here. The four poles, I do have I colored the tips. So it's hard to see here, but I like your idea too of like even just for the tripod, color the whole tripod pole. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just for like even visually here on camera, we probably would be able to see that more clear. And then to clarify, it looks like what you're saying is we put the I fully understand you, but what we're doing is we're taking those three, we're separating one, and we're taking the other two, which will create that we'll do this sort of like, this one comes out first, and then this one gets separated, and that's what creates that tripod appearance, right?
Yeah.
Something like that maybe. Yep.
Yeah.
And then it sounds like, yeah, just like you're showing there. So we
Yeah. To where,
have it on the ground. We separate one from the other, from the pair,
yeah, to
and
where it's
then
always, your door pole is the one that's separate.
that single.
This is the one that's single, that's your longer one. That's your door pole. And then your north and south stay together. That's how your original setup for bringing it up is. And then you just grab the one that's to the outside of your north and south and make sure it comes around the outside of everything else. And you just pull it around.
Beautiful. And then the next piece is you start placing the poles on the north side. And then we switch and we start placing the rest of the poles from the south side, wrapping back around, meeting to the north again. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and the way you can think about it is, of course, after the tripod, first you get your other door pole. So you got a solid 4-point structure and give that a wrap. Make sure that's solid, give it a good pull down, make sure you're solid and everything's lined up and looks good where you want it. And then, yeah, from there, start in the north side and just go from the door all the way back to where that tripod pole is. So it's like a stopping point. So you just fill in from the door to the tripod pole. And then go to your south side, start at the door, work your way all the way around, and then also continuing to finish the other side.
Yeah, that's great. And I think for those watching too, one of the things that you did last year that I thought was this, I think it just helped too, was to make sure we had the right sizes. You preset the location of the poles on the ground by using I think we use spray paint for to mark the circles.
Yeah,
for
I
the
just
poles.
did some marking paint. Yeah. Yeah, I just did some marking paint. Like I said, that's where I go with my story rope. And then I just lay it all out using geometry. Because for me in my
Yeah.
brain, that just works better. Like I know once it's there, that's where my poles need to be, you know. Takes some of the
Yeah.
guesswork out of it, I guess you could say.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think it makes it clear so you know where each pole is going to go, and that way everybody else also knows where the poles are going to go, and we're not relying on that one person who's saying, "Oh no, you move that pole a little bit this way, a little bit that way." No, it's already been measured out, and hopefully, when we do that, when we do the first TP, um, we'll have enough understanding that then hopefully we'll be able to separate and have two crews going at the same time, or after you set all of the foundation of it, the markations, so that we know where we're going, and we can
Mhm.
start doing it ourselves and take that burden off of you. So thank you for that. That's what I wanted to just sort of speak into again and clarify.
Yep. And then let's see here. What you said remind me of one other thing, but I think I forgot it. So we're talking about the setting on ground, opening it up. Oh, that's what I was going to say as well. Now, because we're talking about putting the lodges up, as far as when you go to dress them and you bring the lift pole up that has a canvas on it, and then you unfurl the canvas around. Um, for the summer open lodges, you don't. Let me start here. Actually, so winter closed lodges, you're trying to get the maximum diameter you can get with that canvas. So if you just put it up completely at the maximum diameter that you have and you're trying to get it and put the pins in, it's going to make it extremely hard. You might not be able to get it. So the way what I do is I set them up like this, but you want to leave 4 poles slightly inside of where they're going to end up being. So those 4 poles being just a little bit inside gives you that extra slack in the canvas so you can pin it, start to, stake it down, and then you push those other 4 poles back out and it tightens it for you. And for those, it's actually really easy too, because you're not going to move your door poles because one of your door poles is part of your tripod. You don't want to do that. So you're just going to go 1 pole back from your door pole, on both sides. And when you're putting the poles in, you're going to leave that in, say about 10 inches or so. Okay. I'm just going to pull that in, and that's going to create it to where that canvas can come straight across here instead of going around on those two spots, and also in the back. So same thing, you don't want to do your first ones because one of them is another tripod pole. So same thing in the back. You come one in from there, and those two poles you're going to set inside just a little bit for when you put the actual teepee up. So that way, once you dress it, it's easier to pin, and then you just push out those four poles to tighten that canvas. Without what I was to say, but on the open summer lodge, you don't need to worry about that because there's going to be enough canvas. You're wrapping it around and pulling it into itself, wrapping around, pulling it into itself. So on an open summer lodge, you set all your poles exactly where you want. You don't need to worry about shrinking it so you can get the canvas off. Okay. So I guess with that, I can't think. Oh, another thing that's very important too, because as far as the beauty way, and it really does make a difference. All the prayer ties that go at the very tip of all of the lodge poles. Okay. Um, when these are all nicely spaced, tied down tight, all up there, it just gives another layer of grandeur to the whole crown. All those prayer ties flapping in the wind, all symmetrical all the way around. Oh, and we've had it in the past too, where unfortunately they weren't tied tight enough, and then they'll slip down. And we've had to take a lodge down because it slips down, and you get worried that it's going to be getting into all the binding or not. So it is very important. I want to relate to the prayer ties within 3 inches of the top of the pole, and it needs to have a really good lashing to keep it there. Do that, then your prayer ties, your poles, your spiral, everything's symmetrical, and it makes for a very, very nice looking. Okay, well, kind of the most all I got right now. I didn't plan on going into how I lay out on the ground. This was just kind of more of general process, some terminology, north-south door pulls. One other thing, okay, that we can actually go over is the lift pull itself. So where you want to measure for that. So your canvas, you want to measure your canvas in its whole height. And like we got these measurements now because over a couple of years been doing it, but you would take your canvas, pull it stretched all the way out, and you would measure that canvas. And now for circles, what Hua likes to make sure they breathe well, is you don't set where you're tying that canvas to the lift pole just exactly where that canvas is, because for one, two, it's heavy, it'll stretch, it'll come down. But Hua likes to keep an air gap at the bottom. So you're going to set that canvas up from the bottom of the lift pole about 11 inches. We found works out really good. So you go 11 inches up from there. So when you tie it to it in the canvas, you pull it all the way out, you got 11 inches left at your base. That measurement to where you tied off that canvas is going to be the exact same measurement that your north and south poles are going to. And then now for your door pole, I haven't figured out the exact, like, there's a ratio or percentage for it yet, but you want it longer. So I've been like with them, I got measurements down where, like, as far as probably do the math on eventually, see if there's a proportional thing to it. But like, say for Fire Lodge, the north, south, and lift poles are all marked at 19 feet. The door pole is basically 21 feet, just under 21 feet. So it's a 2 foot difference that gives you that extra lean in the structure. So, but yeah, as far as your initial setup, it's good to know the length of your canvas, and then for circles, plus 11 inches. And then that's where you mark your lift pole and your north and south pole. And then from there, you figure out how much you want to add on your door pole to give you your proper lean or to push that smoke hole far enough back for where you want. And then yeah, as far as the layout on the ground, that'd be one. I guess eventually maybe could probably do like a little compass thing if we got the right camera and stuff up, or just especially everyone that's out there. I'd say that's one, that could pass on as far as real life experience watching it put down helps a lot. So
Yeah, I think in terms of how you've laid it out, Dan, this is definitely, as I told you before, and I think it's important to state the more of that detail that we needed in order to really learn how to do this. And there is definitely a request and request for brothers and or sisters who want to learn how to do this, that we pay closer attention to how this is done. So we're not having to relearn this all over again, 2, 3 years from now, but we've got hopefully my thought is to have a manual that we can have in physical form that we can pass on to the next generation, so that there'll always be this passing on of teachings and information. And I'm sure somewhere in there somebody will learn or figure out a different way, maybe a better way, just a different way of doing something. And I feel like right now this is probably one of the best ways that I've seen it done. So I'm looking forward to us getting this done, and I feel like we'll be able to get this done in a really good way.
well, thank you, Paul. Yeah, because like I said, I don't know if it's the right way, but I'm just showing my way. Which it seems to be working so far. We haven't had many that would need to come down. They've always pretty much stood up. So, and yeah, and as far as anyone that's watching this later, as far as on a recording or not, I'm always a big proponent of, and like I believe Paul is too. He's been out there. Is just come to the TP raisings, and you'll learn. You got questions, we'll tell you. So,
Great. I'm gonna when we're done, I'm gonna take this link and send it to all the brothers who are going to be joining us this year. And
okay,
then for as long as Zoom saves this recording, or if we decide to update it next year, we'll include that as part of the teachings that everyone gets when they register in Thunder Lodges. They get this video so they can watch it, and that'll be another way of
and,
preserving it.
and maybe eventually, I guess there could be a scripted one.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm always into updating, and what I'll do is I'll be taking notes when I'm out there too. I think we saw, I don't know if we'll have reception, so I might just make it a manual, uh, do it manually, taking my notes, and then try to put that on a Google Doc, and save that electronically too. Cool. So
Oh yeah.
I think we lost John, but I don't have any other questions at
Mhm.
this point, Dan. So if you have anything else you
Okay.
want to add?
I'm sure there's probably a lot more, but no, I feel complete. I think that's a good little primer for people. Anything, babe?
No.
Which, yeah, Rabbit's been here.
Bye.
Yeah, I'm good.
Cool. Excellent. Okay, so I think on that note, we'll uh, complete our class. And thanks again, Dan, for taking the time to do this. Like I said, the link I'll send in an email sometime in the next couple days. And if there's any other questions, who's watching this, you can. Do you want them to email you, Dan, directly, or do you want to have them email me? Preference?
I don't really check my email, so
Okay, so if you have a question, so if there is a question, you can email me at vitalchiro.com at hotmail.com, which is in the email that I've been sending out, and then I can forward that off to Dan if it's something I can't answer. But I think either way, for you, Dan, to see that, and that might also help with future teachings. Sound good?
When we stop recording, we have a question.
oh,
Okay, so on that
okay.
on that note, thank you all. Have a beautiful day, and we'll see you all real soon.